Welcome to the Pewtercast. I am Brent Allen, your host, joined as always by my co-host Ren Daxt for our Buc'In the News show for October the 12th. This is heading into the Bucs at Atlanta game. Ren, how you doing here at the end of the week, buddy?
I'm ready. I'm ready for some football.
Yeah. You know, I was just thinking, we are a quarter of the way through the season. For some people, a little bit further if they actually played a Week 5 game. This season seems to be going by fast.
There's something I want to talk about real quick, and I had no plan of talking about this, but this is starting to really get under my skin. Mm-hmm. Hey, shocker, something's getting under Ren's skin. How people at football talk about how it's a marathon, not a sprint, because it is absolutely a sprint. Now, the time of a season is long, but you only have 16 games, man.
Right.
There's no sport where these games count more than football. You know, it's not baseball where you go on a 9-game losing streak. Oh, no big deal. Well, it's a big deal, but hey, you've got 100 more games to dig yourself out of this, or basketball, or hockey. You know, you start off we'll be talking about it, you know, tonight. If the Falcons this will make them 1-5 if they lose, when they lose, and your season's over. So don't be talking to me about in these press conferences how it's a marathon, not a sprint, because the Falcons are facing elimination from the playoffs and winning the division in Week 6. And it's just something that it's been it's been getting on my skin where I hear these people whose opinions, you know, I like and I guess, and you hear the coaches and the team. It's not a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. I'm like, no.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've never thought about it I've never thought about it putting in those terms of the sprint, not a marathon, or whatever, not a sprint, a marathon. But no, you're right, because this season more than any other just really feels like it's speeding quite, right along, but next thing we know, it's going to be playoffs. And, if the Bucs are playing, great. We'll get an extra 3-4 weeks.
Right.
And if they're not, then we're back into our off season and, back into that grind of it. So, but we are heading into Week 5, Game 5 for us, actually, I guess Week 6 of the season. So we're going to enjoy it while we have it, Ren. We're going to love it. But this is our Buc in the News. If you are just joining us here at the Pewtercast, this is the show where the week is done for the Buccaneers. There's nothing left to do at this point but play the game. All of the transactions have occurred. The headlines are out. The injury reports are out. And so this is really the point where we get to talk about everything that has really happened over the course of the week. And the way we do that, we start by talking about transactions, and then we'll talk about our headlines, and then we'll go into the injury report to wrap up the show, and we'll talk about our predictive inactives. As we do that. So, Ren, let's start at the top just like we always do. We'll start with transactions. We did have a handful. Now, I should also preface this. This actually encompasses 2 weeks worth of
this is since
time.
After the Chicago game.
Yeah, so after the Chicago game, and then so through the bye week, and then this week as well, as they've, this is their post-bye week, I guess. It still feels like the bye to me for so many ways. But a couple of definitely significant things. The first one we heard, this came about last week. They released defensive tackle Jarrell Worthy, Ren, which you were pretty high on him. But they signed in his play.
Yeah, whoa. I wasn't pretty high on him. I just thought for someone who was walking the streets, he was a former second-round draft pick. And I thought he flashed in some preseason games with his penetration. I wasn't expecting, Fletcher Cox and Aaron Donald, but I thought it was nice.
Did you think he, on a scale of Gerald McCoy to Ryan Russell, where did you find him?
Gerald's a 10,
yeah,
and Ryan Russell's a 1.
Sure,
I think he was like a 5.
Okay, right.
I think that he can. I think he should have a spot somewhere on someone's defense, especially if you run sort of like this 8-man rotation.
Uh-huh.
I think he's good enough, to be on someone's team. Mm-hmm. Now, there's a lot of other things about coachability I don't know about. Maybe he just, it takes a long time to pick up a scheme, or he likes to freelance. And so there's other things that go into it. But from, his speed and power and his jump off the ball, I thought was really good. Now, he didn't do much in the DAX stats, which is true. But, But like I said, I thought it was a nice pickup for a really banged up defensive line that you need a body. I thought he was, probably the best player out there, and he could do some things. Now, I'm not sad they released him though.
Okay. Fair. Well, and not only that, it's not that they just released him. At least the Buccaneers feel like they upgraded him, and in signing the same position, defensive tackle Raheem Nunez-Roches. I think he calls himself Nacho. Is his own personal name. It comes to us from the Kansas City Chiefs. Mm-hmm. I am not familiar with this guy. Seen him on Twitter a little bit since the signing, and he seems like an interesting cat. Seems like a lot of people really like him. I'm not really sure what he was doing free. That's always the question I have with people who get signed at this point of the year. Like, well, why were you free? So, Ren, what do you got on this guy? Do you know anything about him? Have you followed him at all?
Not really. He was on Kansas City's, front line, which a couple years ago was really good. Their defense is sort of, they're piled in there with the Bucs and the Falcons, as in it's really hard for them to stop anybody. Mm-hmm. So having said that, you wouldn't think that, hey, wow, glad we got this guy. But an interesting fact that, actually played for Todd Monken in college.
Okay.
And and he left early, and Todd Monken tried to get him to stay. But he ended up latching on with Kansas City and had a good little run there. And so I would think that sort of, like you said, an upgrade from Worthy to Nacho, as we're going to call him, that has to do, with the way the NFL goes. Like, the more you sort of pay attention to these lower roster turnovers and like coaching staffs and sort of dig deep, and they've always sort of played with, it's like, oh, hey, there's Mike Smith who, was with this Dirk Cutter in Jacksonville and Atlanta. And then, hey, there's Todd Monken who was with this and here. It's like, there's always a connection where you worked with them before.
Right.
And so I think the familiarity that Monken had with, went a long way into getting here. And he did it on his own. He came here, tried out, and he made the team. So I don't expect much. And, if Unrein, when Unrein ever gets past his concussion protocol and get a little healthy along the defensive line, I don't expect him to stick around, but, it's a body and we need bodies. And he's played a lot of NFL games. So I guess you can hang your hat on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the only thing that I can sit back and think is they must think that he's an upgrade at that spot, which is why they would, make those two moves. Now, speaking of an upgrade, the Buccaneers, we had on our practice squad a defensive end, Damone Harris, whom they activated to the active roster this week, and in doing so, they released Will Clark, another guy that you were super high on, Ren.
I am. I once again not super high, but I like Will Clark. I behind JPP, I would still say I think he's the best edge defender against the run that we have. I think he's better than Curry against the run. And last year in very limited playing time, he did get 2.5 sacks. Just one of those things where you scratch your head. I'm going to throw him into the Keith Tandy pool where it's like, okay, when you play him, he does really well, or at least he seems to. As a fan, he pops up and like, wow, another interception by Keith Tandy. Okay, back to the bench. And it's like, what's going on? And that's how I feel with Will Clark. It's like, hey, Will Clark's in. Oh, look, he made a tackle for no gain. Okay, yep, back to the bench. Oh, okay, all right. Hey, touchdown. Whatever team we're playing. Wherever Will Clark was, like, okay, what's going on?
Right.
But this isn't the first time that he was cut earlier this year, so he seems to be sort of that, the 53rd guy on the team right now, and it just might be a matchup. Like they want Damone Harris's skill set and body type on the roster more than they need a long, lanky, basically a JPP clone, a poor man's JPP, really poor man's JPP. Nothing against Will Clark. It's just, JPP is really good. So, yeah, it's sad to see him go. But, like I said, with the Worthy and Nacho, these guys obviously know a lot more about these players than I do. But it was sad for me.
Have I ever told my Will Clark putting my foot in my mouth story? I don't know that I've done it here. You were there. I don't know if you actually saw what happened.
Oh, let's hear it.
So this was the very first day this year that you and I had media credentials, right? And we're sitting out there, we're waiting. We finally get our badge. We finally get into the media room, right? And we're sitting there, and I forget who I'm talking to. I'm talking to
probably Trevor. He's the only one there.
Maybe Trevor, maybe somebody else. I don't remember exactly who it was. But we were talking about the defensive line and how things have been going with the defensive line and all the upgrades and everything that we've had for that. And I was making the point of like, yeah, but look at who we had. Like, you had the front four, but then who else did you have after that? You had Ryan Russell, and you had Silver Salinga, and you had Will Clark, and you had these guys. I mean, who are these guys? And right about the time I'm saying that, this guy comes running through the media room, and he stops to actually talk to Casey Phillips, like, who had just like popped in for whatever reason, like she was getting a drink out of the fountain or something. And let's say it's Trevor. Trevor looks at me, he's like, yeah. So he's like, oh, who is that? Because I was a player, right? He's like, oh, that's Will Clark. And I was like, oh. Yeah, but I mean, Will Clark had, he was our leading sack guy, at least a defensive end last year as well.
He deserves to get a shot. Hey, I would be surprised if he's starting this year.
Let me speak a little louder, a little clearer. So, and he just kind of looks over at me, like, oh, whatever. He almost, by the way, ran me over in the parking lot before that, so I didn't feel too bad about it. Like, because apparently, I think he was late. I think that's what it was. Is he was late for practice. And if you've ever been to One Buc or Advent Training, whatever, the player, like, if you're facing the football, the media room is on the right, and that's where all the media people park, is over on the right hand side. Over on the left is where the football players park, and it's where their locker room and stuff is. Well, he was over there, like in his big white truck, big white F-150 or something, and we were walking across, and he like was zooming towards the media side, because apparently he just couldn't find a parking spot. And I mean, you think about that, right? 90 guys, 91 guys out there just for players plus everybody else. So he apparently was just late and trying to find a parking spot. And that's, I think that's why he came zooming in through the media room. But yeah, so I didn't feel too bad. He almost ran me over. And then I was talking trash about him with him in the room. So awesome.
And now he's cut.
And now he's cut twice. And you know what? And here's the thing: if there's an issue at defensive end, the very first person that the Buccaneers are going to bring back is Will Clark. Yeah, exactly. So they did that. So Damone Harris is going up. Damone Harris was a guy, I remember him in training camp. I remember him in preseason. He was a guy that some people actually thought would make the active roster, that initial 53. He didn't, but you would get him back on the practice squad. So it'll be interesting. I don't want to say I'm glad to see him come up. I don't have a stake in it one way or the other, but I'll be interested to see what he does, if anything, come this game. To replace him on the practice squad, we signed a new wide receiver, Damone Patterson. The Damone? Damone, I don't know. I don't know anything about this guy, but he's a practice squad guy. So is there anything you got that's interesting on him?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He made a lot of noise in the Steelers this year.
Okay.
And so much so that, a lot of the Steelers websites were talking about, hey, this guy could make the 53-man roster, okay. And it was like, he's a shoo-in for the practice squad,
right?
But he might 53-man roster, and I'm not really sure. I think he was wave injured, so he got injured week 3 or week 4 or something, okay. And it's like, we like you, but we need this roster spot,
right?
You're not going to start, and it's real close. You're going to make the 53-man roster, but we need bodies in here for week 4. So they ended up wave injuring him. And he's I guess the best way for Bucs fans is to comp him to Chris Godwin, where he doesn't get a ton of separation, but he's real good at high pointing the ball and 50-50 balls. Okay. So he'll make tough catches. He's not really going to run away from anybody, but it's one of those guys that if the quarterback's in trouble, and you see, like, oh, there's the bone. I'm going to throw it to him because I know he's either going to catch it or not let the other guy catch it. Mm-hmm. So, those are all good things for a wide receiver. But
so he could be our new Freddie Martino / who's that other guy? Bernard Reedy. Guys that have been around the practice squad, maybe him and Bobo, maybe go up and down a little bit.
I think he's better from what, just sort of listening, reading about him.
Uh-huh.
I would say, like I said, I've never seen him, but I would say that he's better than both of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't need a receiver. I think this is just more of, hey, let's collect good football players, and we think this guy's good. And you never know what happens. Deshaun Jackson's not super durable, and then down to Godwin and Hump, and then and now Justin Watson would move up, and then next thing then he could bounce up to maybe the 53 man, and
mm-hmm.
so let's now just Justin Watson's active. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like Justin Watson was inactive. Now 4 weeks later he's active, or even 3 weeks later he's active. So it's a guy that I would keep an eye on. Not expecting rags to riches, like, oh my God, become the NFL greatest wide receiver that no one wanted. Nothing like that. But I guess sort of put a button on that. It would be something, if he's still around, would be somebody to get really excited about, like next year's training camp.
Okay, cool. Then we had one more transaction. Ren, another guy that you're super high on, unfortunately is no longer with the team. Your favorite offensive lineman of all time, Cole Garner, has been waived from the IR list, from the injured reserved list. Now, I got a question about this. I got to admit, and this is probably just showing the limit of my knowledge of how all this works. He's been on IR for a while. Mm-hmm. Why waive him now? Like, obviously, you put a guy on IR because you want to keep him around. You want to see if they can get better, maybe come back and contribute to the team, or whatever. Why waive him now? Why waive him in week 6 of the season?
Because you can't waive him until they're healthy.
Okay.
Yeah. So if a guy gets injured, you put him on IR, but you can't actually waive him until he gets healthy, and then it's more protection of players like Cole Gardner,
mm-hmm.
where if they get hurt and the Bucs just like cut him, and now all of a sudden he's out on the street and he's hurt and doesn't have any medical insurance, and so basically the Bucs have to pay for him to get better, and give him a check, and then when the doctors clear him, it's like okay, you're back on your feet. You're cut.
It's kind of like the J.R. Sweezy situation. Like, we had to wait until he actually was healthy again, until he got cleared before they could cut him. Otherwise, they'd owe him all of his salary and all that contract stuff. So
it was the same thing with Nick Folk. When they moved on from Nick Folk, but he was injured and he sat there on the IR. So it was officially, he was a Buccaneer for 8-9 weeks. And then finally he got cleared by doctors. And it's like, okay, now you're cut.
Right. So, okay. Well, so he's gone. And now, but why would they do that and not just do the injury settlement? Because we see the injury settlement. So we get this Damone Patterson guy. They put him on an injury. I think he was the guy who said was an injury settlement.
Injury waived.
Yeah, injury waived. One of the things with that is that, so he was injury with the injury settlement is it delays the amount of time that you as a team can re-sign a guy. So other teams can actually snatch you up before you have a chance to get them back on your roster.
Right.
Is that maybe something we were trying to avoid with Cole Garner? We waive him, we can actually get him back sooner if we need him, put him back on our practice squad or something like that. Do you think there's any is there any reason to hold a player on IR and then just waive them as opposed to doing the injury settlement a lot earlier?
I'm probably going to say something wrong here because I'm not super sure. How descriptive. I'm not 100% of the difference between the two.
Mm-hmm.
I know that an injury waive is you pay the player for how many games you think they were going to play.
Right.
So that's more of a guesstimation. So I don't know, putting a guy in R and waiting until he gets healthy and releasing him and then injuring. I'm not sure injury waive a guy if it's a money issue or like you said, is it injury waive might be something where, okay, we're not bringing this guy back, so we're just going to waive injure him. But, hey, I might want to bring this guy back, so I IR him and wait till he gets healthy, and then maybe I can – because I'm not really sure how the rules are.
Yeah.
I think with injury waive, you have to wait those amount of games that you paid him before you can sign him back.
And then some. It's those amount of games and then 2 or 3 penalty weeks or something.
And then maybe with IR, you can sign him back
like right away if you
like
want.
right away.
Yeah.
So, and like I said, that might be just the opposite. It might be switched or backwards. But I think, those are the difference between the two. And, that's it's getting into like baseball GM stuff, but it's fun to talk about, but unfortunately I don't know, it's like the practice squad rules. Like, what are the practice squad rules? Well, it used to be real easy,
Right. It's fun to talk about. It's just unfortunate that the player who is at the center of this is a guy who's really never going to play for the Buccaneers, or if he does, it's going to be very, very limited. So, if this was maybe a different player, maybe somebody who had a little bit more, but those whole rules about injury waiving and settlement and claiming and all that kind of stuff. Who knows? Anyway, so that is our transaction report. The big things, big things being an upgrade at the defensive tackle position and potentially at the defensive end position with a new practice squad member that I'm actually kind of now a little bit excited. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll see him probably at least until the end of the year, maybe next offseason, and then waiving Cole Garner. All right, moving on. Headlines, big headline this week. We'll get to Jameis Winston in a minute, but the big one that really came out that I think made a lot of people very, very happy, Ali Marpet is re-signed. We already talked about it a little bit on the show earlier this week with Scott Smith. Ali Marpet signed to a new contract, gets a pay raise this year. This year counts as the first year of a 6-year contract, so we've got him for the next 5 years. Good move, I think. Great move.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Dirk Cutter today on his radio show, it's on local radio down here, 620 WDAE, the sports animal, said that Ali was first he called him a top 10 guard, and then he rephrased it to a top 10 interior lineman. So Dirk Cutter doesn't think there's 10 better guard or centers in the league, and I'm sure that one of them he thinks is on our team. So
right, okay, right.
So that only leaves 8 other guards or centers, according to Dirk Cutter. And I would really like to believe that. It's sort of hard to make someone else believe it that's not a Bucs fan until Ali and or Jensen start to make Pro Bowls.
Right.
But, I'm bringing up PFF, and, it was funny that I'm not sure if he said on our show, I've heard him say it. It might have been his podcast. We had Scott Smith on. He looks at PFF the same way I do. It's like when you disagree with him, you're like, oh, it's like, who's even grading this? Like, this is terrible. Right. Like, how can you have offensive line grades out an hour after the game? But if it's your guy who's ranked high, it's like, and then you pass around and show everybody, oh, you don't think Ali Marpet's good? Look at this. Look what PFF says. Right. So, it's totally unfair. I get it, but I still do it. It is some kind of grading system.
Yes, it is.
So, and Ali's up there. So, we talked a little bit about last show, and once again, from the numbers that he got, I haven't seen an official breakdown yet. Have you? I looked on Spotrac. It's still got his rookie contract.
Yeah.
So it's supposed to be around $10 million a year with $27 million guaranteed, and I think it's right. Another really good job of paying a player that you're paying for his future, but you're not overpaying for his future. It's like, he's like a top, I think he's like a top 7 guard, but top 3 in guaranteed money,
Right.
So he's getting paid really well as far as league average, but he didn't set the new mark, which he shouldn't, because he doesn't have any Pro Bowls. Like, it's like he doesn't have the resume to back it up. But we're going to get Ali through his prime years as a Buccaneer if he stays healthy, and that's exactly what we wanted. Like, look, we follow the Bucs really close, right?
Right.
Name me 4 guards you would rather have than Ali Marpet.
Well, that was actually going to be my question, because talking about the Pro Bowl, generally they send about 4 guards to the Pro Bowl, 3-4 guards, something like that. Okay, on the NFC side, anyway, if we can limit it to that, who I don't even know who the guards are who normally go, but like. It's kind of like I feel like I'm at Thanksgiving, like you're at that Thanksgiving table, like, okay, I need that guy to go away, that guy to go away, and that guy to go away, and then I get to sit at the big table, You know, like who needs to go away for Allie to get into the Pro Bowl?
Who needs to retire? Or who needs to get injured?
Right.
You know, like for the season. And, you know, I'm not wishing it. Or who needs, like, you know, play needs to fall off a cliff.
Yeah.
And I've said that, you know, I think I started saying this a year ago. Like, once Allie gets in, I think his play will be good enough where he stays in. Mm-hmm. You know, guard is like one of those positions where it takes a couple years to sort of get the reputation. And then once you get it, like you said, once you get a seat at the table, you're there until you retire.
You really are.
Yeah, you're just there. It just becomes like you know, a name that you hear on, you know, every Sunday when, hey, look, the Cowboys are playing that guard, blah blah blah. I always want to say Zach Martin, but I don't think, and I think they just put him on the medical relief, so I don't really want to. People yell at me, and he might even be a center, but you know, it's just like, oh, this guy, you know, 4-time Pro Bowler, one of the best in the biz. Like, you keep hearing these guys' names over year after year, or 3 or 4 times every day on Sunday or Monday night or Thursday night, and Marpet, I think, is getting into that conversation. When you see a Bucs game, you know, at one point during the game, the announcers are going to talk about how good Ali Marpet is.
Mm-hmm. So I'm looking here at last year's Pro Bowl roster for the NFC, and Zach Martin is a guard from the Cowboys, Brandon Brooks from the Eagles, and TJ Lang, who replaced Sheriff, and then Trey Turner replaced Martin, and then Larry Warford of the Saints replaced Brooks. So
he's got a little work to do.
Yeah, so you know, I don't know where Allie ranks compared to those guys, but I mean, you know, obviously they're getting some alternates there too. So
yeah, but honestly, like, if you want to get, you know, as the Bucs organization wants to get Allie in the Pro Bowl faster, start winning games,
right?
Make the playoffs. Like, that's how. It's really hard to make a Pro Bowl on a 5-11 team.
No matter how good you are. Yeah.
Yeah. And especially if you've never made it before.
Right.
You know?
Right.
You know, you have to have, like, outstanding numbers, and you can't really track guard numbers.
Right. Right.
You know? It's a really deep dive to start, you know, comparing interior linemen against other interior linemen.
Right. And just to reiterate what I said earlier on another show with this whole contract, and then we'll move on. You know, you mentioned that we basically have locked up Allie through his prime, which is great. I did a quick Google search. 11.7 was the number of years for a quote unquote good offensive lineman in the NFL. The average number is 2.3. That's an easier number to actually find. But for a good interior lineman, 11.7 was the number that I saw out there. And, you know, so this gets us right up pretty close to that. So, you know, we could potentially have Allie in Tampa Bay for the rest of his career. And as you brought up, he may not even go for that third contract. You know, we'll just kind of see where he is, what he wants to do. You know,
life and how much money these interior linemen are making. And, you know, Allie's, you know, he's just it doesn't feel like a lot bothers him, you know?
No,
like,
yeah.
Like, he wants to be the best guard, but he also really wants to do other stuff after. It's very reminiscent of Joe Hawley.
Sure.
You know?
Sure.
It's like, well, like, yeah, it was fun. Like, I made a lot of money. I just don't want to do this anymore.
Right. When he's done, he'll just be done. And for right now, he's having a lot of fun doing it. So,
and probably won't tell anybody, won't put a video out, won't hold a press conference.
Right.
Well, you know, it's just like, what? Allie's done. Somebody sent somebody to his house, and, you know, he's been fishing for 2 weeks already.
Right. Exactly. All right. So that's Allie Marpet, got a new contract. Very good. And Allie, I know you listen to every episode of the Pewtercast. Congratulations. Thank you for the exclusive interview we got back with you during the summer.
Which one? What?
Moving on. Yeah, I got him for one of the media days.
Did you? What did you say? I don't remember that.
Yeah, I remember I talked to him about him and Donovan Smith playing next to each other, and, you know, how their friendship was going to help that and impact that. And he talked about, you know, being able to, how playing center last year actually has helped him flipping back and forth to different sides of the line and stuff like that.
I do remember that now.
So, yeah.
Did he give you a thumbs up?
He did.
He was leaving?
He did. He's like, oh, man. I had that real awkward, like, so, hi,
hey.
How's it going? He's like,
Oh, you're stopping and talking to me. Right. I haven't gone further. I didn't think that was going to happen, so I don't have anything planned.
Oh, you said yes. Okay. So anyway, that was my starstruck moment. You had yours over in the tent with Dirk Cutter there this summer. Anyway, if you guys want to hear more of that,
hairy eyeball.
Yeah, if you guys want to hear more of that, go back and listen to our Ren's training camp diaries. We'll tell you all about that. In more in detail. But probably the biggest news, even more so than Allie's new contract, Jameis Winston is back. Lots of people are talking about it. Lots of people are saying, hey, listen, if you got Jameis in fantasy, start him. Jameis is going to have a big week. Lots of people talking about him. Jameis, of course, the big thing is the Buccaneers finally have him back in their promos. Surprise, surprise. Were you surprised to see week 1, Jameis Winston having his own promo video and back in the marketing tools for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Not really, but it wasn't something I thought about at all.
Right.
The stadium thing was just optics, and the Buccaneers would have got killed in social media if they would put Jameis up. I mean, they would have got slaughtered. It would,
everybody made a big deal out of it, and you're like, you can't.
You just can't. Like,
right.
You think,
right.
Oh, now they're moving on from him because he's not on the side of the stadium. It's like, well, think about it for a second.
Yeah.
Just think about all these other groups and stuff. And
there was an article that went out, and I don't remember the guy's name. I actually tweeted him, but it's for aroundthenfl.com, and they were talking about this new promo video with Jameis, and one of the lines in there is, and they were talking about like they removed him from the marketing and the promotional materials, and they took down his mural from the side of the stadium and blah, blah, blah. And I tweeted him back. It's like, okay, whoa, let's be clear. They took down his 2017 mural along with all the other 2017 murals, and he was just not on the 2018 murals. It's not like his mural was up there. They took him down and left everybody else up there. That's not what happened. And the guy tweeted me back. He's like, oh, thanks. I'm like, dude, don't play that kind of bullshit with us.
Don't try to play that bullshit.
Yeah,
not on my watch.
Exactly. I mean, don't. What he said was true, but it was incomplete, and it painted a not full picture of what was actually happening. Anyway, it bothered me. It really, really, really bothered me. It's not even local media, asshole. He took it graciously though. Anyway, sorry. Jameis back in the promos.
Yeah, am I shocked? Like I said, it wasn't something I was thinking about, and it barely raised an eyebrow. I was like, "Oh, look, Jameis back to the promos." Well, that makes sense. It wasn't like "Oh, what are people going to say about Jameis back in the promos?" Even though there was a very slight 8-hour Twitter news. That's how I think. Like the news feed on Twitter is like 8 hours.
Right.
So there was one little news cycle about 8 hours where people talked about it, and then it was gone. So it's not shocked, and don't care either way, really.
Yeah. I would have been more shocked if they never put Jameis back in their promo materials right away. I'm interested to see, like the stadium, they have their little souvenir cups. And last year, I want to say it was like week 1, Jameis was the featured person on the cup. I'm interested to see who is featured at the next home game on
Who's it been so far?
I can tell you it has been. Let's hear who's this. Levante David was on one, and I've got him back here because they go all the way back through the preseason. Tony Dungy for the last one,
of course.
OJ Howard and Kwon Alexander. So those have been the 4 so far. So there's 6 more. It's going to be the big names. Cameron Brate will probably be on one of them. Allie was on one last year, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him. Jameis will probably be there. They might have one for the whole team. Are we doing a second? We're not doing a second Ring of Honor this year.
No.
So there won't be that. It'll be. Gosh, I don't know. We'll see. So those.
But you're interested to see if it'll be the Cleveland game.
Yeah.
If
so the Cleveland game,
right
if Jameis is right, and I'm also interested to see if some Jameis murals or banners go up around the stadium now that he's back.
Like on the light poles and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe things more interior to the stadium itself. I'm interested to see. So now here's the other thing. Stephen A. Smith
at Jameis Stadium,
right?
Raymond Jameis Stadium.
Raymond Jameis Stadium. Just rename it. Stephen A. Smith, who's a guy I don't know that we've ever really talked about before on the show.
Because there's no reason to.
Right. But he said, he's talking about Jameis. He talked about how he didn't mind Jameis being the face of the franchise, the face of the Bucs. I don't necessarily care to talk about that, but it got me thinking, and I have a question.
Sure.
So Jameis Winston is in a contract year. The Buccaneers have already picked up his option for year number 5. And here we are as a team. Jameis is essentially starting his season now, right?
Yeah.
So as a fan base, as a team, we're all kind of sitting here going, what do we do with Jameis? Obviously, the Glazers and the Light, those are the guys who actually have to figure out what to do with Jameis. But I think it kind of begs the question, what do we do with Jameis Winston? Do we just let him play out this year and go for the 5th-year option, and then we talk about his contract then? Do we try to go ahead and sign him early like we did Ali Marpet, and we know that they're having conversations with Kwon Alexander's agent? Do we wait and see what happens this? What do you think? How do we treat Jameis Winston going forward, particularly as we look to potentially a second contract with him?
Well, as a Buccaneer, I would sign him as soon as possible to a long-term extension. Now, having said that, I think they'll probably wait till he has a few games under his belt. And by few, I mean probably, around 14, like week 15, 16. Okay. And I think by the end of the year that it'll be extremely obvious to Buccaneer fans if Jameis deserves, if he's the guy going forward, This is really, if he takes a nosedive, then you have some serious questions. If he plays like he did the second half last year, then I think it's a no-brainer. My needle is heavily leaning towards the way he played last year.
Right.
With the weapons and the upgrade of the offensive line and how I think he's starting to take what the defense gives him, and he's protecting the ball inside the pocket. So I expect Jameis. And
a lot of that, Ren, and forgive me if I'm wrong, and correct me if I'm not, is a lot of that also coming from what we observed from Jameis through the preseason and through training camp that we got to be out there and see?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, he had a great, we've said this many times, but we talk about what a great, preseason Fitz had, and then it carried over to the regular season. Jameis had the best preseason of the 3.
He did. He absolutely did.
Fitzpatrick had sort of a stinker. I guess you would say it just wasn't as good. He had a Pittsburgh Monday night game in one of his, 3 preseason starts. It was like, it wasn't nearly as sharp as the other 2. And it was a middle one. He had a really good game, then kind of like, and then it came back and like, oh, okay, now I feel better now. But Jameis didn't have any of those games.
Right.
So, it's once again, I wouldn't be shocked if Jameis wasn't suspended and got to play these games, that he put up similar numbers to Fitzpatrick. Now, exactly. I'm not going to say he would have thrown for 400 yards 3 weeks in a row, since that's never been done in the NFL ever. But I will say I won't be shocked if someone ties that mark this year or breaks it this year. The way the offense seemed to be trending. So at the end of the year, I think it's be very obvious and I'll go to the very beginning, as the Buccaneers, I think they hold all the leverage because of his suspension, because of his off-field issues, that you can get Jameis without having to reset the quarterback market. And then you get going forward, I honestly think a top 10 quarterback going forward who will be 25 years old next year with 4 seasons under his belt. And you just roll from there. And as the contract, as the years go by and you start looking at his contract, it'll become a team friendly contract, and I think it'll be a real bargain. And I've said this many, many times, even though there's a $20 million price tag that Jameis is getting. Well, it's not official. Like, they've picked it up, but it's not official, I think, until May. So you sort of have all that time to rework his contracts. I like to do with Ali. But even if they do give Jameis one of these monster contracts that makes him like a top 2 or 3 quarterback in the league or paid player in the league, I really believe that Jameis will always restructure his contract for the Bucs to be able to go out and get the guys they need to win. I think You see like Aaron Rodgers' contract sort of hinders what the Packers can do. Matthew Stafford's contract kind of hinders what the Lions can do. Same thing in Oakland. I think that Jameis would rather win than have to be like, well, I'm a top 3 paid quarterback.
Right.
Right.
I mean, Tom Brady, that's kind of been his MO in New England over these years, is he'll rework his contract to allow him to go get somebody, right? I mean, I don't follow him super close, but that's certainly what I've heard. So let me ask you, do you think as we look at a contract, do you, do we offer him, so 130, I think, is what Aaron Rodgers just got, that over 100 million is kind of the going rate. Are we looking up and around there right now? Or are we looking at something, say, maybe more 70, 80s-ish with built-in incentives that could get him upwards of, 120, 130? Or is it just kind of a standard, QB contract, you think, that they should be looking at?
I think there's going to be incentives in there, but I don't think they're going to be made public.
Sure.
It'll be incentives like, hey, don't get arrested. Hey,
don't get suspended. Right.
Hey, yeah, exactly. Like things like that.
Right.
So I expect it to be comparable. Like I'm not, he's not going to sign a new contract and still be the 10th highest paid quarterback in the league. That's not what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying that I don't think Jameis cares about winning. He has to be the highest paid quarterback. And like I said, if I was the Bucs, I'd do it right now because as his agent and as Jameis himself, you can't defend him being the highest paid quarterback for what you did to your team for the first, it worked out so far, but you weren't available for your team as a first round draft pick. You are the franchise guy and you weren't there because you were drunk and you're stupid. So, so like, I want this kind of money. Well, okay, well, that kind of quarterback, and so there's a back and forth, but I think Jameis likes Tampa, and he wants to be the faith organization, and I think he'd rather be a starting NFL quarterback than do anything else in the whole entire world. And he's going to be one of those guys that starts, I'm sure he's already taken care of his body, but he's going to be one of those guys, Lord willing, he'll be playing when he's 40. Mm-hmm. Like, he's just going to be.
And I think it's also worth noting, Jameis isn't a guy who just wants to play. He's a guy who really, really, really wants to win and do what it takes to win.
Yes, exactly. And he will find out, like, exactly. Yeah. It's not. There's a difference between like, well, you know what? I want to be the best golfer in the world, Brent. But you know what? Like right now, I don't even own golf clubs, so I'm not really doing what it takes to be the best golfer.
Right.
And Jameis will work on his game all the time during the off season and keep working on the things he's lacking and keep picking people's brains and asking what I need to do, and he will do it.
Yeah. Which, by the way, when we start talking about things of like, oh, he's a turnover machine, he doesn't protect the ball, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that, he doesn't do this, and as you quite often bring up, he has an issue. He goes in the offseason, he corrects the issue, and then he comes back and he's corrected the issue. Now, another issue may percolate to the surface at that point, or something may become more troublesome just because the other thing is taken out of the way, right? But that's one of the things that doesn't worry me about Jameis. Like when people talk about his shortcomings as a quarterback, that's why I don't get up in arms about it, right? Because he's going to fix it and he's going to do what it takes to fix it. So, I'm excited to have Jameis back. I know the team is probably excited to have Jameis back. I hope most of the fans, unless you're just one of those guys who is just against Jameis and you've always been against Jameis and you're never, ever going to be anything other than against Jameis, I don't have anything for you.
And
sorry.
That's fine.
And that's fine. Right. I don't care. But if that's you, then okay, I guess you'll just be waiting until Jameis is not the quarterback here anymore. So, all right, let's move on. But while we are on this topic of contracts, I did want to bring up something because this mostly involves fans more so than a player. But Kwon Alexander tends to be a pretty – he's an interesting follow on social media for sure. And one thing he tweeted out very close to the time that Ali Marpet signed his contract. And I think it's the only reason why it's an issue is because of the timing of it. But he tweets this out. He says, "One thing you will not do is take advantage of me! ! Space! ! And people picked up on this. Some of the media guys picked up on this a little bit. But what's really interesting to me is as I look at it and I see the responses that fans have had back to Kwon, and a lot of people are real cool. Like, hey, go get him, Kwon. You're going to do this. You're my favorite player. Blah, 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 things like that. But there are other people tweeting back to him who are all like, must suck trying to reach a new deal when you can't figure out which gap to blitz. Or, gosh, I should actually probably have these pulled up here because it's
no, I don't want to talk about it this long.
Yeah, but it's interesting to me. And Kwon actually even tweeted back to one guy. It's like, "No, listen, I don't worry about contracts. I worry about winning games. I play this game because I love it, not because of money." But I just found it interesting that so many people jump to the idea that this tweet is about his contract negotiation, which we do know Jason Light's been having those talks with Kwon's agent. But what's your take on this whole thing? Kwon tweeting back about this whole not taking advantage of him.
Well, if you're Kwon, you can say, well, I guess I shouldn't say if you're Kwon. At one point, you can look at it and say, well, that was just sort of an ill-advised, not ill-timed tweet. Not that it was bad or anything, but that's also what you get for vague tweeting, like vague Facebooking, like, oh gosh. And then everyone's like, what? And you're doing it so people will get at you, say, what's wrong? What's going on? Or they'll pump you up. I love you. You're the best. Like, keep your chin up. It's something that I'm not a huge fan of. But it just, like you said, it's only just because the timing. Right. It was within sort of that Twitter 8-hour news feed that Ali had signed his contract. So automatically people thought, like, okay, we signed Ali. Who's next? Kwon and Donovan. And then 3 hours later, Kwon's like, you're not going to take advantage of me. And it's like, oh my God, they're trying to lowball Kwon. Right. And it's like, no. You have no evidence of that.
You don't know what you're talking about or why he tweeted this.
Yeah, but it's a little bit of Kwon's fault because you vague tweet and the timing was bad. And then it's a lot of everyone else's fault. And we were talking, earlier before we started recording, and I think you nailed it on the head. If Ali hadn't assigned his contract that day, this whole tweet would have just been,
what's he talking about?
Yeah, there's Kwon being Kwon. Yeah, like, you're going to take advantage of it. Okay.
Or his cousin must have come asking for money. Or
he's trying to open a restaurant and they want him to front all the money. Like, I could sit here for 6 days and give you reasons why he tweeted that.
Sure.
And none of them will be because Mike Greenberg is lowballing it.
Right. I might put that in as one of them. But I don't. But he directly refuted that. No, I don't worry about the contracts. I just worry about winning games. The other one about he plays it because he loves it, not for the money. I'll give him that. But let's be honest. He's playing for the money too. Like, he's cashing those checks, and he should, and rightly so. But yeah, that's really the whole thing is, hey, listen, it's not, be careful jumping to conclusions. That's all I'd say. Cause that may not be that. All right. Rin, do we want to dive into this whole Mike Smith press conference thing? We've talked about it. We've gone through. Whatever. Okay, I want to bring up one thing that is going to sound like a defense of a Mike Smith defense.
Ooh, let's hear this.
But it's not. Okay, it's really, really not, because I am still very much firmly in I think Mike Smith should be fired. That hasn't changed, and I think he needs to be held accountable for his defenses over the cumulative total of his time in Tampa Bay, not just what's happening for this year. However, focusing in on what's happening just this year, currently the defense is. They are bottom of the league in the bottom of the league when it comes to passing yards allowed, which is not good. They're actually 8th in the league when it comes to run defense, though,
because you don't have to run the ball against them,
right?
And then when it's their turn to stop the other team, they can't do it. Like they didn't do it against Chicago in the second half, and they didn't do it against Pittsburgh that near the end of the game.
Sure. So here's my question, because I had this thought. Okay, and no, I'm with you. No, and this is why I want to bring this up, because I was having this conversation with our friend Chris from Alaska/Virginia earlier today, and
I think we can drop the Alaska.
Okay, Chris from Virginia now,
formerly from Alaska.
Formerly
right?
of Alaska. Yeah.
That guy.
Yeah, that guy. Pretty sure that's him. I might be wrong.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure.
I don't know.
Anyway, you weren't part of that conversation. Let me tell you about the conversation.
Alaska/Virginia then.
I like it. Okay, let's go with that.
Let's drop it.
Yeah, whatever. I'm going to drop this line of conversation. So I kind of had this thought, and I was going, I wonder if this has any impact on anything. And it basically comes down to this. So we talk about Jameis over the last couple of years. He's got all these passing yards and, youngest player ever to throw for, 3,000, 4,000 yards in a season, 3 seasons in a row or whatever.
Right.
All these things. But let's be honest, if the Buccaneers offense for the last couple of years hadn't been behind the 8 ball, they probably would not have been throwing, or if we had a running game we could depend on, we wouldn't have been throwing the ball as much as we did.
Right.
Right? Okay. That kind of has to work the other way too, though. Okay, so we're throwing the ball more than we probably ought to, which is shooting up, Jameis's passing yards.
Right.
The first 2 games, at least the first game especially, first 2 games, and then even say what you want about the last couple. When our Buccaneers offense gets out 2 scores ahead or 3 scores ahead, that means the other team is dumping the running game and they're taking to the air to go passing yards, right?
Yeah.
Which means the other team is passing the ball a lot on our defense. Mm-hmm. And the other team is paying their guys, like those guys get paid too, right? They're good players. They're going to complete some passes. So by a byproduct of our offense being up 2 or 3 scores, which is awesome, is going to mean that our defense is going to have a lot of passes thrown on them, which means that they're going to be up there in passing yards allowed.
Yeah.
Right. So my question is as we're talking, and as people continue to talk about Mike Smith and give reasons why he should be fired, is the idea and the stat line of Bucs are bottom of the league or towards the bottom of the league in passing yards allowed for this season. Is that a valid point to go against Mike Smith and the defense this year? So far, anyway.
Well, yes and no, but that's not, I think the people are calling for Mike Smith's head. No one called for Mike Smith's head after the Pittsburgh game. It was you went to Chicago against a guy who only had 9 touchdowns in his whole entire career. You couldn't get your guys to play man or zone at the same time. You couldn't that's like day one high school football.
See, but what you're talking about, those are good reasons. Those are reasons that we have been calling for Mike Smith to be fired. What I'm talking about is because I still see this out there, that the passing yards actually seems to be the one that I like. I think Jenna Lane had an article about it. A couple other people, this is the one that I keep seeing coming again and again, as they're bottom of the league in passing yards allowed and points allowed and things like that. Or they're kind
points
of
allowed. That's the one. I mean, points allowed. That's the one. I understand what you're saying, and I don't think people would be yelling for Mike Smith's job like if we went in Chicago and even lost 24-21.
Uh-huh.
I think people blame the offense.
Sure.
I think people would have been where's the run game?
Right.
How come the offensive line isn't blocking well enough? 24 points, there might be a little bit the defense, they didn't play terrible, but come on, man, it's Mitch Trubisky. Mm-hmm. But you gave up 5 in the first half.
Right.
You are last in the league in points given up. And that's at the end of the day,
those are the ones that matter. Right.
That's what Mike Smith even said that in his press conference.
Yeah.
You have to score 1 more point than your opponent, and you're giving up the most in the NFL.
Right.
And once again, like you said at the beginning of the pod, the reason, or I guess the beginning of this segment, it's not because of the Chicago game that we're calling for Mike Smith to be fired.
Right. Right.
It's because of the Rams game 2 years ago. It's because of the Broncos game 2 years ago.
The Atlanta game a couple years ago.
The Atlanta game 2 years ago. And then it's because of the Vikings game last year. It's because of the Cardinals game last year.
Yep.
It's over and over and over. And if we would have won the Saints game, it would have been because of the Saints game this year. Mm-hmm. And now we've played 4 games and 2 of them have been god awful defensive performances. 1, first game of the year, the offense bailed you out. 2, they didn't. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying is like, okay, well, the first 2 games and the Bucs were up, but the second 2 games we weren't.
Right. So I don't know. It's just one of those. If we're building this case,
you're saying
I want to use good, valid arguments is what what I'm saying. And that was my question. It literally, Ren, was a thought I had maybe 6 hours ago. So it's still very unbaked. All right, let's move on this. I don't know. I'm tired of talking about Mike Smith, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't.
All right, last thing we found out.
Talk to him like 4:00 Sunday. Like we might have a whole another week of talking.
Oh my gosh, yeah. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Final headline that came out as we're moving on here and wrapping up the show. Captain votes. Captain votes are coming in. They are now going to happen. Oddly, as Jameis comes back, apparently there's some sort of deadline that they have to have. I don't know about deadline, but can we just list this as one big fat I told you so?
Yeah, I guess we can. But for 2, I think so, but not necessarily. Okay. Now, we said that the reason they're not voting on captains is because they're waiting for Jameis to come back so Jameis can be a captain, right?
Because we didn't believe Dirk Cutter earlier when he said, I want to give these guys, I want to let these guys get some experience and actually see who's really a leader on this team and, not just the pop, which he parroted that same thing this past week, right? Because this is what he said, At least the story is consistent.
Well, there you go. That's how you tell a good lie. Just keep it consistent. And I'm just kidding.
You tell it long enough, you'll eventually believe it yourself.
That's true. So I at first, where I thought it was a bunch of crap, I think that it's a good idea to give like the JPPs and the Ryan Jensens a chance to get a C on their jersey.
Sure.
But I do think that Dirk Cutter will do this going forward every year. I honestly do, no matter how long he stays with the Buccaneers. But I think 100% that he came up with the idea because Jameis was suspended.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah. If Jameis wasn't suspended, he never would have changed it because there's no reason to. Now Jameis suspended, it's like, all right, how we, I want to kind of work around this because I want to give everybody a chance. Right. To everybody, and by everybody I mean Jameis, and then I go, wait a minute. Well, I guess also the free agents and even maybe the rookies, they might play well enough. Okay, I like this idea. Well, I'm going to wait till week 7 or week 6, whatever it is, for a captain's vote to give everyone a fair shake.
Well, and let's be honest, because being a captain on a team is a little bit like going to the Pro Bowl. Once you become a captain, you tend to stay a captain.
Yeah.
Right? So, where you have constantly the Gerald McCoys, the Levante Davids, the Mike Evans, even the Jameis Winstons, to actually go, no, wait a minute. What if those guys aren't the captains of the team? Or maybe they, you put us 4, 5, 6 weeks into the season and maybe other guys actually percolate to the top as captains. So where it's not always a Gerald McCoy, and not. Almost like it's is there anything in that like of a? Because you and I have said on this show, listen, Gerald, love him on this team. I call him a second chair leader.
Right,
leading from the second chair. He's not that out front guy, and I'm going to stand by that. And that's not a knock on Gerald. It's a great thing to be. I'm that way, but it in a real good, gracious way, it gives your team at least the opportunity to go, is this guy really a captain or not?
Does he deserve to be a captain this year?
Yeah.
And that's why I was giggling, because I'm thinking, I'm like, holy cow, JPP is going to get the captain over Gerald McCoy, and Gerald McCoy is going to hold press conference at his locker like he does every Wednesday, and he's going to get these questions thrown at him, and he's going to have to sit there with a straight face and talk about how he doesn't care.
Right.
I just can't wait.
But we're also going to get that JPP's, got everybody in a circle around him, and Jordan McCoy's not listening. We'll get that one that comes out. Oh, see, look at this picture. Jordan McCoy's not listening to the new captain. There's a riff in the locker room because he's not the captain anymore.
Oh, yeah. Right. So maybe he'll say he deserves it.
All right, so let's.
Jordan McCoy's going to be so pouty.
All right, so we get what do we get? We get 5 captains, I think.
I have no idea.
I think it's 5. I think you get two on offense, 2 on defense, and then 1 on special teams is generally the way it goes.
Sure.
Do you want to predict who you think might be captains?
I'm going with. I will go with JPP, and I will go with Levante David. On offense, I will go with Ryan Jensen and Mike Evans. And then special teams, I'll go with Ryan Smith.
All right, give me 1 more offense, 1 more defense, just in case I'm wrong on the numbers there.
I would have to say, I'm going to give it to Gerald McCoy, even though I want to give it to Justin Evans, just because I really want to see McCoy pout for a week. I don't know why. I don't know. I'm just like you. Like, I like him. Like, I love him on the team. I just don't want to hear from him every week as you're like the mouthpiece for the
captain,
organization,
right?
and as my captain. I just like. I'm it's you're a Pro Bowler, but you're a piece player, and your stats prove it.
And you think Jameis is the other guy?
I don't. If I was the Buccaneers, on that team and on that, I would quietly campaign for not giving Jameis the captainship.
Sure, and rightly so.
And
so
because
Djax maybe.
That would be would have to or Allie.
Well, I was going to say the one disagreement I would make is I would not go with Ryan Jensen, but I'd go with Allie Marpet.
No way.
You don't think so,
dude? Every time a receiver or running back gets tackled, who's the guy running up there picking him up?
Okay, I can see that.
I mean, I want my offensive line to follow Ryan Jensen's. Not attitude.
Lead.
I want you to,
lead.
follow his lead. Yeah, like emulate what he's doing during the game. Right. I like Deshaun Jackson. I think the reports that came out of like Philadelphia and Washington, and I didn't pay really close attention, but I've been so impressed by Deshaun Jackson. As a person and as a player, when he first got here, like he likes to party. Let's face, like his Instagram is him at the club, like 80% of the time.
Right.
Right. But he is always moving. He's always doing something, and there's nothing wrong with that because he definitely handles his business. He's living his life the way he wants to live it, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And I've been really impressed with him. So I would probably say like Evans, Jensen, Deshaun Jackson. And then after that, Allie. But I would probably go for those 3. Yeah,
and have a kind of the quiet, just not Jameis this year.
Yeah,
let's see. Yeah, just not this year. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because
I'm with you. I'm actually with you on that. I really am.
Yeah, it's just, and he hasn't done anything yet.
Right.
Exactly. And I know the captains aren't going to be this week. They're probably going to be next week, though. So Jameis goes out and throws for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. And you beat Atlanta 42-38. Is that enough to get a captainship?
Mm-hmm. I think it depends on. This is the story of this year. It depends on how it happens, right?
True.
Depends on how it happens. Okay, let's move on. Let's wrap up the show. We're heading into our injury reports. Injury report for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Slightly surprising towards the beginning of the week, but it actually looks really, really good. But before we do that, let's look at the Atlanta one, which this one actually is also looking pretty good for the Buccaneers. Devontae Freeman, Grady Jarrett, and Derek Shelby are all going to be out for the game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We've got Justin Bethel, Mohamed Sanu, who looks like they will both go. But still, Devontae Freeman at least being out is good news for the Buccaneers. and then a couple defensive line guys.
I don't. It's good to have Devontae Freeman out. I just don't think the Bucs are going to be able to stop Coleman or even Ito Smith, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean,
you don't think it matters that much in the grand scheme of it?
I don't. I really don't.
Okay.
I think Devontae Freeman is a better player? Yeah. Mm-hmm. But do I think that they're going to shut down Coleman and Ito Smith? I think Ito Smith's going to have a better game than Coleman.
Against this 8th-ranked rushing defense?
8th ranked?
8th
ranked. Are they ranked 8th? Well, we'll see. I mean,
we'll see where they are at the end of this game.
We'll see. I mean,
I hope they jump up to number 5.
If there's not 20 rushes between the two teams this game, I'm not shocked. I think they're both going to try to run the ball early.
Uh-huh.
But at the end of the first quarter, the score could be 21-14.
Right.
Like, it really could. Like, the defenses are that bad and have been that bad.
Yeah.
So, what was the question? Oh yeah. Freeman out. I get, it's good, but I really don't think it's going to affect. What helps the Bucs greatly is, of course, Grady Jarrett. Is that it?
Grady Jarrett, yeah.
Yeah, he's a DT. He's out. So, Dirk Cutter said this on the radio show today. They're weak up the middle. So they're starting DT. They're starting middle linebacker. Starting DT's out. Their starting middle linebacker's been out most of the year. He's out for the year. And their 2 safeties are out. Like, if
those guys are on IR. Like, they're gone. Those last 3 you said. Yeah, they're gone.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I talked about it earlier this week on the pods about how I think the Bucs are going to try to run the ball. And this is Peyton Barber's, this is all set up for Peyton Barber.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is it. Like, pound the rock up the middle and keep the ball out of Matt Ryan's hands. And that's how I think the Bucs are going to try to win this game. Now, I've also said that if, they do that on 3 possessions and they get 10 points out of it, they could also be down 21-10 after Atlanta's first 3 possessions, and that goes out the window. And now, like I said, it's a race to 50.
Right.
So,
it's interesting. We talk about those 3 players. They're starting middle linebacker and then their 2 safeties. For the Buccaneers, I mean, out for the year, maybe not for the year, but at least out for this game, is our starting, what is he? Is he the Sam linebacker and Kendall Beckwith? He's out.
Yeah.
And then one of our starting corners is out in Vernon Hargraves. And then one of our starting safeties, whether you think that's a good thing or not, he's still our starting safety, and Chris Conti is out.
Our starting DT was out. Our backup DT is still in concussion protocol.
Right. So, those guys, so it's amazing how you take a look at 3 players, you put them on injury, and it basically just decimates your that entire side of the ball. Like, you can just take that few players, and we've had that few as well. However, over on our side, Bo Allen, who's been out for the last couple of weeks with a foot injury, he is listed as questionable. He was full participation today in practice, so we'd certainly expect to see him back. Carlton Davis is with a groin injury and then added a back injury as well. He is listed as questionable. O.J. Howard surprised everybody. Scott was super surprised earlier this week.
Yeah, I'm not. I get that, and I was a little surprised. OJ was back this week. Practicing too. But I mean, the diagnosis was 2 to 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, it's week 2.
Week 2. Right. There we go.
So everyone was like, "Oh no, my God!" Right. He heals like Wolverine. It's like, all right,
Yeah.
First off,
he's young, and they still made out of rubber at that point.
Yeah, exactly. It didn't even look bad. Watching the play, it's like, I'm not even sure how he got hurt.
Right.
Like, he never, I didn't get it. Now, I wasn't saying it was a false injury. I'm not saying that. It was just that I'm just not so over the moon about how O.J. Howard's back. I'm glad he's back. Thank you.
And Jordan Whitehead with a hamstring injury has been full participation all week. He is still listed as questionable, but we need him. So fully expect to see him. And then Lamar Dotson, who's had that lingering knee injury even through the offseason, had surgery on it. He was at full participation today, and he is in for the game. So the only person we have out is this Marcus Williams cat that we brought in and haven't really been able to do anything with him because he's been sidelined with a hamstring injury.
Last time he played was the Eagles game, and he's been out ever since.
Yeah, and even then it was real limited, I think, in those snaps that he got. So
he got in because people got hurt.
Right. So I think I saw Greg Allman or someone tweet this earlier this week. I want to say it was Greg. Forgive me if it's somebody else. Saying this is the healthiest the Bucs have looked as far as injury reports go all season long.
Yeah,
like
even
including
preseason.
The first. Yeah. So so that's good. That's a real good thing. All right, Ren. Well, with that, this is where we get to our inactives as we take a look at who's actually going to be suiting up for the Buccaneers in Atlanta. We know Marcus Williams is out. We need 6 more people. Who you got?
Yeah.
This is the part you never do. All right. You think about it. I'll go ahead and do mine first. So we got Marcus Williams. Obviously, Ryan Griffin is quarterback. He is going to be out, so he's my number 2 guy. Alex Kappa, Michael Leedkey, the 8th and 9th linemen, they will be out as always. So that gives me 3 more people. And the people that I've got sitting out are... I think they're going to it's either this Damone Harris guy or Noah Spence. Mm-hmm. It's going to be one of those 2 guys. My money, and I hate to say it, is honestly on Noah Spence. I think they're going to give this guy Harris a shot. I think Sean Wilson is going to continue to sit, and we'll see Rojo back active as well. Which really only leaves one other spot, and I feel like it's going to be Carlton Davis. A groin injury with a new back injury. I know he's listed as questionable. He was limited all week long. Those are just things I don't want to play with, and I feel like he's probably going to be our 7th guy. Outside of that, we kind of need everybody else that we have. So, bless you.
Can you hear that through the...
Just barely.
Okay. Sorry, everybody, if you heard that. Yeah. I've been having sneezing fits lately.
Yeah.
Like, I'll do like 30 in a row.
But at least you sneeze. Nothing's worse than having to sneeze and go through that and then nothing.
Nothing's worse.
I don't want to say nothing's worse. I hate it when that happens though.
Then don't say that.
I say it a lot. Nothing's worse.
Nothing's worse.
What's the time? I'm editing this out. What's the time code on this? Sheesh. Who you got?
All right. Well, let's see. I've done some quick math. I like Ryan Griffin. Gone. That's not a shocker. I like Williams, of course, because he is out. So that leaves 5 more for me.
Right.
I'm sticking with Wilson, Sean Wilson as well.
Okay.
I'm sticking with Lidkey.
Okay.
So that's 4. So I need 3 more.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with Beninock.
Really?
I'm putting Beninock down. Not necessarily that he deserves it. I think it's time to see what we have in Kappa.
Okay.
And 75% rotation they've been doing, I think they should do it, but Evan Smith gets 75 and Kappa gets 25%.
Okay. Because basically that rotation has been like Beninock plays except for like the last series or 2 of a half. And then Evan Smith comes in. So it's not even a rotation. It's just this particular time period they put in Evan Smith, and it seems so weird.
I don't really understand it either. And Beninock has given up 4 sacks in 4 games.
Okay.
I mean, it's time to give somebody a little try there. Plus, with Atlanta being so banged up, I don't think it's a
bad week to do it.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't think it's a bad week to do it.
I disagree with you that that's what they're going to do. But I could agree with you that that's what they should do.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I got 2 more, huh?
Yeah.
I think Justin Watson plays. Who did you pick? Who were your 2?
I had Sean Wilson. No, I said Noah Spence or Damone Harris, but I was leaning towards Noah Spence, and then Carlton Davis were my last 2.
I think with Bo Allen back and Villa back, I'm taking Nacho off.
Okay.
Because he's a DT.
Okay, and he's new to the team. Fair enough. He's new to the team.
I don't think they're gonna. So basically, you're saying Carlton Davis is not gonna go,
right? Because of the because of the soft tissue groin injury and this brand new back injury. That is the one that I would put down. But you bring up a good point. It really could be Nacho, and they could still go with Noah Spence or Damone Harris. Not that they're heavy at defensive end, but they're okay at defensive end.
Right.
So as far as depth goes.
No, yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. So,
because outside of that, you're looking at linebackers, starting to tick off some of these linebackers and special teams. But
they like
jobs.
Stitchy on special teams,
and
Cam Lynch. And Cam Lynch. So and it's that hybrid player that can play special teams. They're fast enough to play, and they're strong enough to hold up against it. I think I'm going with Harris. I think after listening to Coach Cutter today on the local radio, Noah Spence came up a few times. I was thinking then that he gets activated. And so,
all right,
this is going to be one of those like, okay, all right, Noah, okay, prove it. He's been like chomping at the bit, like he's like, when do I get to play? When do I get to play? When do I get to play? Well, here's your chance. Like, okay, this is it.
I do like what Buckner had to say about him in his press conference this week. I know we didn't really get to that in the headlines part, but he basically says like, look, I'm going to keep the private conversation between him and I, but he knows what he needs to do. And he knows that I'm here to make him the best Noah Spence that he can possibly be. So I don't know if anybody's talked to Noah about that side, but, one more reason why everybody loves Coach Buckner. Buckner for president, 2020.
Does everybody love Coach Buckner?
Everybody, including you, Ren. Deep down.
I like him. I just don't – I don't understand the fawning over him. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, he just hasn't done anything yet. He hasn't proved anything yet to me with my team. I mean, where are the Bucs in sacks this year?
26th in the league.
Okay.
Yep. Anyway, all right. With that, Ren, we got in on a happy note. Okay, who you got? Who you picking to win? Bucs or the Falcons?
Did you win your fantasy
last week?
Yeah.
Went 1 for 1, 1-1.
Did you
win
win
one? Lost the other. Did I win ours? I think I won ours, just barely though. Like surprisingly.
Yeah, it's not even a competition in my league anymore.
Like, are you just so far outpacing people? Is that what you mean?
There's still somebody with like one loss, and then there's somebody who's undefeated. And in fantasy, really, a lot of it's about getting lucky. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, it's like I'm like 150 points out ahead of everybody in overall scoring. Mm. It's going to be tough to, but it's like I said, it's only one. It's a one game thing. It's not like there's ever a best out of 3. Mm-hmm. Where somebody gets lucky.
Right. I am second in my division right now, but I would be, as far as points scored, I'd be 4th in the entire league right now.
With how many?
582.9. That's 4th in my league.
582.9.
No, 5th. That's 5th. But points scored is not always equating to who has the best.
Yeah, it's points against points scored. Is right. What it is. I have 727 points.
Okay. All right. Our man Alan Decker is winning on one of them, and then B. Fuller is winning on the other one. So anyway, great radio there. So
that was our happy note. I think the Bucs win. God, I don't know, anything in the high 30s or higher. Like they win 38-37, they win 45-42, they win 51-48. Like anything, like this is really a race to 40. I think is how the game's going to go. Now, if the Bucs defense can keep Atlanta out of the end zone on the first 3 possessions, I think this will be a totally different game.
Okay.
But they have to keep him out of the end zone the first 3 possessions. And I think the Bucs will be able to do what they're going to try to do, which is eat the clock up with Peyton Barber in the run game and keep the ball out of Matt Ryan's hands to help out the defense. But, who knows?
Yeah. All right, Ren. Well, with that, as we get out of here, why don't you tell the folks out there where they can contact
What's your prediction,
me?
buddy?
I said it the other day. I can't give one. I really can't. It could go either way. It could. I mean, if you're going to force me into it, I'm going to go with the Bucs because I always go with the Bucs. And
there you go.
28-17, because I think defenses are going to maybe show up possibly a little bit more than what we thought. I'm not because I don't know who it's going to be. You know what? I think it's either going to be really high scoring or really low scoring. Probably high scoring. I don't know. No, I really don't know, Ren. I don't know.
All right.
Because if I'll tell you what, if our offense, I know we beat up the defense a lot over these last 2 weeks, but if our offense looks like it did against Chicago, we're not scoring many points.
Well, it won't, because they don't have Chicago's defense.
Fair enough.
And it's not like we didn't move the ball. Like, we did throw 2 picks in the red zone.
It's true. Very true. So with that, how can the folks out there contact you to talk about your prediction or maybe get some fantasy football advice?
Fantasy football advice. Don't play my team. Find me on Twitter at Rendax, REN_DAXT. I am always down to talk Buccaneers football. You can always slide in my DMs if you don't want to put somebody on blast or put your idea on blast, or it's just a little longer than 280 characters. I will respond to you. No problem about that. And thanks to everyone who's getting their flags now and putting up pictures and, tagging me. Make sure you tag the Pewtercast, tag the Buccaneers, and hashtag raise the flag. Of the handful of people that have gotten and taken pictures, I don't think anyone's done it 100% right yet.
And we're grading. We are grading.
It's just 3 things, man. It's like Pewtercast, Buccaneers, hashtag raise the flags.
Well, if you guys want to get a hold of me, you can find me across all the social medias at Brent Allen Live. And you can get in touch with the show at The Pewtercast on Twitter or at Facebook.com/The Pewtercast. Or you can shoot us an email to thepewtercast@gmail.com. If you want to join the community supporting the show, you can find out more information about that at patreon.com. Well, guys, this is it. The only thing we have left is the Atlanta game. We'll be talking to you guys 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time for the Instant Cast. You guys can call in. Phone lines will be open. We'll be talking about the game. You can join us at youtube.com/Pewtercast or over on mixler.com/Pewtercast. We'll tweet out all that information as the weekend goes on. And so until we talk to you guys on the other side, go Bucs.